welcome to another FACEHAMMER Orc War Clan show. So, can you tell me way more today, excited about this than Stormcast?
No. Like, I'm a slow learner. I know some of the war scrolls, some of them have changed, but they're 78, and that's more than the amount of things I can think about. That's for it feels like free cities or something, doesn't it? It's just too much.
Yeah. There's a lot
harder to digest, whereas this one's broken down into a perfect little bite-sized morsel. So we're covering the third of those today. We've done back-to-back.
Yeah.
Shows, haven't we?
So we're going to talk about Kruelboyz. So I figured it would be cool to do a Kruelboy show about their list.
Perfect.
So I've written a sample army list, and I want to talk about why I've taken what I've taken and what it does, how it works. How it synergizes.
And we're going deep on big yellers in this one, is it?
Yeah. So okay. This is, if I was going to a singles event, a variation of this would be something I would take right now. So it doesn't mean it's what I would end up with, but it's kind of, there's some choices in there which are a little bit, maybe could be stripped out and you could go full on guns if you wanted to, but
I was going to say how much is the huge popularity of the big boys being mega gargants, like, is that a driving force behind this, or is it a consideration? How much of a part has that played?
It has a big impact on it. I think not just giants like Archeon, Teclis, Nagash, any of the big characters apart from Marathi, which would absolutely cause you fits. But most of the other armies, you would then prioritize shooting the snake unit off rather than Marathi. So.
Monsters are just prevalent, aren't they, basically?
Well, the whole battle pack is into them. Like Beast Corps Raiders have got them, and most of them got ward saves. So this is all about killing the big guys. So taking Kruelboyz, I've gone for big yellers, and big yellers gives me the Bolt Boys' battle line. And then it also gives you +3 to the range, and on the first battle round you can re-roll a dice to hit in each
unit.
Yeah.
So you're pushed towards taking multiple units to make the most of that, or how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so MSU is good. It's only in the first turn, so like you're not likely to have many Bolt Boys in range, because if you move, your range drops, and if you don't really want to set very far forward, you can actually, because of what you can do with the command trait. I'll talk a little bit more about the play of the list once I've explained the list, so I'll just go through what's in it. So it's Snatcher Boss on Sludgeraker Beast, who's the general. He's got the command trait Super Sneaky, so he is giving you a buff to your damage on your venom encrusted weapons. He's quite resilient. Super Sneaky allows you to deploy a unit anywhere on the table 9 away, so it allows you to push people back, cause a problem, create a speed bump, or use a unit of Bolt Boys aggressively to shoot something off that's vital. So
if you were to be taking the first turn, then you could.
Yeah, and I've designed the army as a 2-drop.
Perfect.
So it's double battle regiment. He's got the artifact Beast Killer Slop, which is unusual because you'd probably think you would go with the Amulet Destiny, which is the more sensible choice, but Beast Killer Slop's a bit more into the theme of Monster Killer, which allows you to basically start the combat phase, roll a dice. On a 1, nothing happens. 2 to 5, you get D6 mortal wounds. On a 6, you get 2d6 mortal wounds.
You're so bad, wasn't it? Imagine rocking it with something big and taking 10 wounds.
It's fast done, so you can move him, so it allows you to deliver that from further away. If you've got to think of him like a missile, it's like a guided missile. It also,
what's his move?
It's only like 8, I think. It might be 10.
Really helpful then. Yeah.
He's not very fast, but he's pretty key. I did write this with 2 in because I'll just double check it, but I think it's 8.
They hit harder than people would read off their profile, don't they?
Oh, they hit really hard. Like, I mean, especially if you Yahtzee some 6s, they do so much damage because they're +1 damage keys on themselves.
Yeah.
So every time you do a venom encrusted weapons, you cause 1 extra mortal wound. So like
you can basically cover that. If you had 2, you could just have 2 like power centers, and they could cover your entire board almost.
Yeah, and also the expert snatch and grab allows you to end the combat phase, pick a model, wounds captured 7 or less, roll 2d6. If you roll equal or higher their wounds, they're dead. So what's good about that? It's end of the combat phase, so they can't pile in back to currency and things like that. So it's just great. It's just like an instant arc snipe that thing, and it's quite likely to do it if you're alive. So I think probably Amulet of Destiny is the safer pick, but this is more fun. So take what you want. If you want to be more competitive, I'd say take Amulet of Destiny. There you go.
More forgiving, but also you might be able to scare people and threaten more with this, which is tasty.
Yeah. Then I've gone for Gobsprakk, the Mouth of Gork. Mouth of Mork. Sorry, I'll get in trouble. And he knows the entire lore. He gets 2 spells. He's got an Unbind that does mortal wounds as well. So people who take Gargants or Wizards heroes that are monsters like Archeon, Nagash, you could actually unbind them, because once a game you could do a 3d6 unbind. If you roll a 10 to unbind with Mork Says No, they take d6 mortal wounds, but every time he unbinds they take d3 mortal wounds. So he's got a way to do damage to the characters, and when you've got a shooting army, that's pretty good.
He's also got an important buff for stand and shoot, hasn't he?
It's not that important for these guys because it's +1. You don't ignore the -1 to hit if you use Unleash Hell, but you don't really care about that. You just care about rolling 6s.
Oh, okay.
So
Yahtzee.
It's okay.
Yahtzee,
I mean, it's okay, but it's not that important. Summon Bogging Miss, great spell, but he knows the whole lore. And one of the spells that's key in this list is Nasty Hex, which I'll talk about in a minute. I'll go through some of the stuff in detail. I'm just going to get through the list. And then I've got Umbral Spell Portals to deliver that hex from range. I've gone for a Swamp Caller with Potgrot. Now, you could not bother and just go max Bolt Boys, take minimum freeze, and just don't care about having the buff. The reason I've got him is I've got 1 unit of 6 Man Skewers, and that's 4 stand and shoot on a 5 +1 damage. It kind of gives you a little bit more of a explosive shot from your turn. It also gives you a nice unit to super sneaky Alpha Strike if you want to.
Yeah.
So I've got 1 unit of Reinforced Bolt Boys. Then I've got 3 units of Bolt Boys, just standard. 2 units of 10 Hobgrot Slitters. 1 unit of Gut Rippers, again, a bit of a heart choice because I like the models, but you're probably better off just making more Hobgrots and more Bolt Boys if you really want to skew the list. I like the Gut Rippers, gives you a little bit more tankiness, a little bit more sustain. Plus, with the Kruelboyz, you can charge Gobsprakk, the Snatcher Boss, and the Gut Rippers in, and they can all fight first with the War. So the general.
You just don't have. I know it looks a bit weird, but if you don't have them in there, you just have nothing particularly resilient, do you?
No.
Or nothing throwaway resilient.
No,
because
exactly.
you don't want to throw away Gobsprakk or something like that. They're really important.
Yeah, and the Hobgrots can either be the unit you put out with super sneaky, or they can just be there to hold people back for a turn and be a bit of speed bumpy. And I've got double Beast Skewer Kruelboyz. Again, there for sit at the back, shoot people.
Oh, they're scary, aren't they?
They are, yeah. Particularly if you pop that lucky 6.
Would you ever be tempted to buff them with the Shaman?
Nah.
If you had the right target, it's always going on the big unit.
You might do, but in the first turn, yes, because you're more likely to do it with a reroll. So it's a 33% chance with a reroll. So it becomes a fairly it's fairly reliable because it keys off on a 5+ instead of a 6+, doubles the chance. So it's fairly effective doing it.
Yeah.
It depends what you're facing. If you're facing a Mega Gargant, 100%, it's better doing that than buffing the other unit. But
it's nice to have the option. But
what you've got to remember with the damage, it's there for the Unleash Hell. So if you want to make the Unleash Hell more effective, then you probably leave it on. The good thing about using it on the Beast Skewer Killbow is you don't care about the +1 damage from the Sludge Raker Beast because it doesn't really make any difference. You're capped at 12 anyway.
Yeah.
So I'll talk about how they work if people aren't aware. So that's the list. It's a 2-drop. So why Kruelboyz? What does it do? So let's talk about this stuff. So
get sneaky.
There's a lot of special rules. So I'll go through it, but big yellows I talked about already. 3 inches to the range. In addition, the first battle round, each time a friendly big unit shoots, you can reroll one of the hit rolls for one of the attacks. Good for fishing for 5s if you on your beast skewer Kruelboyz, if that's what you want to do. It's a bit niche, but you know it's fine. So, Kruelboyz. So, veteran crusted weapons, mortal wounds, roll 6 to hit. It's kind of important. The Kruelboyz, again, I talked about that for the combo charge of when that turn when you need to roll loads of dice and fish for 6s before they get to hit you. You can do multiple units. That's why the gut rippers are in there with spears for the reach. Dirty tricks. So this is quite important. So this is after players have received their starting command points before the start of the first turn. You can choose a dirty trick. So that's, you know who is going first, you know who's going second. So you can either have -1 to wound across your army first battle round, just straight off.
Solid.
Lethal surprise, which is actually super good against Gargants. You pick a terrain feature or an objective for each 4+. Secretly write down where it is. At any time an enemy unit goes within 1 inch for the first time, on a 2+ to take D6 mortals. To kick an objective, you need to be within 1 inch. So Gargants like to be within 1 inch of an objective. Plus the mind games of it is really good. It's one that people overlook, but I think it's very strong. Disappearing act can be super, super good if you're facing people who've got like minimum size shooting units, like 10 sentinels or something like that. So
Screens as well, potentially.
Yeah, anything that's like a screen of even like the hobgrots like I've got, you know, like if you're playing against in the mirror on a 4+, take a unit that's not been reinforced, which is the key bit. Roll a dice.
Against soul blight, not that they're being taken hugely, but like just taking 20 dudes off the board, like by zombies. Yeah.
And they've got to set it up as a reserve. Basically, you roll a dice. If you roll more than their wounds, they've got to put it as a reserve unit. So at the end of their first movement phase, they set it up on the battlefield within their territory, more than 9 away from enemy units. So it's very good at pushing people back, getting things out the way, not worrying about their shooting too much if they can't deploy them in range. It's good at pushing anything back. So it doesn't work on reinforced units, but against some armies, it's really good.
Horrible against some, particular ones. That's going to be the majority of stuff that isn't a monster.
Covered in mud is really good. It's basically you roll every unit. You roll 3 dice every 4 up. You can pick a friendly unit that's not a hero monster. They can't be seen if they're in cover. So you're shooting against other shooting. You can use that quite aggressively because you can have a unit quite far forward that can't be seen. Obviously, you don't need to see someone to hit them in close combat. So you've got to be a little bit careful because they could just go and hit you.
Avoid the archers to get hit by the spearmen.
Yeah, exactly. So super sneaky is has to be done first. So it's before you get to do your dirty tricks. But it says if the general's on the battlefield, before determining who has the first turn, pick a friendly Kruelboyz unit, set it up anywhere on the battlefield that's more than 9 from enemy units. So this can be your beast skewer Kruelboyz, it could be a unit of shooters, it could be anything you want. It could be just the hobgrots to be a screen. You will know if you've got the choice to go first or second. So depending on what you're facing, you might want to alpha strike something. And the reason I've got the mirrors, and I'll talk about the spell lore now. I'll beast clear slot. Let's do that. So once per battle, start the combat phase. Pick an enemy monster within 3. On a 1, nothing happens. 2 to 5 d6. On a 6, d6 mortals. So that's the artifact. So spells. So Laura of the Swamp, Nasty Hex. It's cast on a 7, a range of 12. Pick an enemy unit within range. Until the end of your turn, wards cannot be taken for models in that unit.
It's so good.
So you put your portals down, you Nasty Hex, Archeon, Nagash, Amulet of Destiny, Maw-Crusher, Amulet of Destiny, Gargant. They can't take ward saves against your army that spews mortal wounds out of its bum. It is so good if you get the combo off, in terms of if you concentrate your fire, you charge into combat, you pop your war, you just drive all out to kill something, you can drop some of these superheroes with their 2-up rerollable 1 armor saves without them even getting a chance to fight you. Which is huge. The threat is just
against the one Mega Gargant that has the amulet. In fact, it's not one. Could be more than one. You can get 6 up elsewhere, but the one Mega Gargant that has the amulet, Archeon, whoever it is, that's some really scary stuff, especially with your Beast Killer bows and the big ones. Yeah, amazing.
You've also got things like Sneaky Miasma, which allows you to move. So you can pick a monster within range, and that monster can make a normal move. So you can actually use that to move Gobsprakk into range to then cast Nasty Hex.
Tasty.
So you could put Sneaky Miasma on the Swamp Caller Shaman. So if he's not in range to use his potions, you could cast that on him. It gives you another chance to cast portals. So if you cast portals, don't get it off. You could then go to the Shaman and cast Sneaky Miasma to move, and then you could then cast Nasty Hex from Gobsprakk once you've moved up. Then Gobsprakk would be in a position then to move and charge with his combat damage with the mortal wounds, because the Volker gets venom encrusted weapons as well.
Yeah. You could triple move your Fasten if you wanted.
Yes, so he could move 24 inches.
That'll do.
So yeah, 8 inches, then Fasten 8 inches, then normal move 8 inches. So he could get into a very key position. It's also quite good if you were playing aggressive and you wanted that unit of 6 Bolt Boys with super sneaky, then you could cast Sneaky Miasma on the Sludge Raker Beast, because you've set him up further forward because you're playing for the combo. You know when you're deploying. He moves Fasten, he goes up with his move, then he uses Fasten, then he moves up, then he's going to be within range to buff their mortal wound output. They then move, because you want to move them up to get double shots. So you roll double the amount of dice. Every 6 is 3 mortal wounds. So your unit of 6 guys goes up to 12, 13 shots with a reroll at 15-inch range plus their move. So you can do quite a bit of damage. Then the 2 beast skewers can go as well. It's a little bit aggressive, but if it's going to win you the game, then
even if it's got a chance, so sometimes you look at something and you know that if you get slightly above average, you could have won the game there and then. So your list's got a huge amount of options, and because apart from the one block of 6, you're barely ever going to be over allocating damage in this list, I don't think, which I really like. It's one of the best reasons to play MSU with shooting, because everything that dies will probably die pretty much exactly.
And Gobsprack's 14-inch move. He's got 3 attacks with D3 damage. He's got the flesh beak and flesh tearing talons, so that's 5 attacks at damage 2. So he's not awful in combat. He's a bit like a mini Arcan.
Yeah.
Not as defensible. But that damage, if you rolling him first, and because he does get the venom encrusted weapons trait for his beak and talons and his stinger, even though he's a mount, so he gets the mortal wounds on all his attacks anyway. The good thing about him is that it's the delivery of that 14-inch move. And again, if you get the miasma off, that's 14 inches plus a 12 inches cast. That's 26-inch threat for the nasty hex. The reason I put the portals is it allows you to do that further away. Now, what you can do is you can take Soul Snare Shackles instead. And what the Soul Snare Shackles do is that you can shut an area of the board off that they can't charge you around. So you can use that instead. So it depends what you want to play. I like the portals. It's a bit more aggressive, but...
Might change singles event to teams event.
Yeah, 100%. I think if you go teams, you just skew way into the shooting and you don't bother with a lot of this fancy stuff because you just, you're going one way.
Kill something until it's dead. Give me some giants. Yeah.
Because the Swamp Caller's Shaman, I think, is a bit of a trap. Gut Rippers, they're there for that turn. You do the War. They've got a little bit of defense. So they're okay. I don't rate them too much. The Sludge Raker is amazing. And then really the Hobgrots are just there to be in the way. But really the Bolt Boys and the Beast Skewer Killbow are the stars of the army. So with your hasty shot, aim shot, so obviously I mentioned this already, so with the Beast Skewer Killbow, 24-inch range, it goes up to 27-inch range in big yellows with a reroll. So potentially on first turn you could be in range to hit some stuff if you go first without moving.
Yeah.
If you move him, then it's a 20-inch threat, so you lose range and you get a worse shot. It doesn't really give you any benefit. The difference with the man skewer bolt boys is when they move, they get an extra shot. So
it's just more chance of 6s.
They've got a 20-inch threat, and they would roll 2 dice rather than 1. You don't care that they hit on a 4 because you can always give them +1 to hit with all out attack if you really care about it. But really, you want to pop 5s and 6s if you've got the poison buff. But if you don't have it, you just want to pop 6s.
How much of because you played a few games with this in playtesting, right? How do you literally just not give a crap about the stuff that isn't mortals, or is it?
You
is it
do
a bonus?
care.
How does it feel?
You do care, but doubling the amount of attacks and only potentially losing one of your hit stats because you use a command point is way more efficient than rolling 3 dice on or hitting on a 2. The difference is the range. So obviously, aim shot gives you a 27-inch range. If you move and shoot, you've got a 20-inch range. So big yellows makes them way more effective because of the 3-inch range, because it effectively makes a huge difference.
Is it so it's not worth considering the guy who gives you the +1 to hit within 15 inches?
It's melee only, I think.
Oh, is he?
Yeah. So you're talking about the crew drummer. Add 1 to hits for attacks made by melee weapons.
Okay. Yeah.
So no.
And you don't care about your monster left at all. So 100%.
No, you don't care about them melee. So so the man skewer bolt boys they're only bravery 5 or a 6-up save. There is an element of the list, and this one thing I have toyed around with is to not take Gobsprakk, although I think he's amazing, and take the kill boss on Ripper Volker because he's got this commanding view ability, which allows him to use the same command ability more than once in the same phase. So you could use Unleash Hell twice. So if you've got 2 units of 6 bolt boys, that's quite good. He also gives you only 1 model runs away if you fail. If you rather than taking a battle shock.
Okay, so he really encourages you into the less MSU and more medium.
So he's also like a fast moving combat guy, which is quite good. So he's I think he's 240 points, so he's a bit more expensive to take him and a shaman. I think the magic's so good you want Gobsprakk. You could run Gobsprakk, him, and a Sludge Raker and not bother with the shaman, but then you'd lose like a unit of guys. So the endless spell unit Hobgrots or the Gut Rippers, because you don't need the Gut Rippers you could replace them with Hobgrots and use the endless spell. So you could do something like that. So there is some play. Like I think having him, Gobsprakk, and the Sludge Raker is actually pretty good from a war point of view, because you can make this guy your general as well, rather than the other chap to call the war. So they have to they want to prioritize the Sludge Raker, but your war comes from your kill boss on Ripper Volker.
Yeah,
he's still got the venom encrusted weapon, so there is some play with him. I think it just depends on what you want to be doing, but
and what you think you'll be facing, I guess, as well.
Yeah, and essentially, like, he might even lend to have a big unit of Gut Rippers, like unit of 20. So, like, because a unit of 20 with the buff, with
interesting option,
is quite good, and you can. So, I think you start to dilute the list a lot.
Right, yeah, it becomes a different thing. What grand strategy did you pick for the list?
Well, this is an interesting one. So you can go with Hold the Line, because all your guys are battle line basically, and they're MSU and they're spread around. It's quite hard to get
a long way away. Yeah.
There is other ones you could take. So there's one which is you could capture terrain, which people don't tend to take, but you've got a lot of units, so it's quite good. You could do it that your general's not been slain for your half units in your start army destroys no good. You're not going to use in and out lads because you're just going to use a different one. You might play War because your general Gobsprakk doesn't have the Warlord, so he doesn't count as a general in addition. So you might play War if you were using the kill boss on Ripper Volker because he's so quick. you can generally get him into place, and he's not a priority target for your opponent.
Yeah. Well, if you're getting triple monster, you could pick the other strategy, couldn't you, and just go
Beast, yeah,
monsters alive.
which is probably more worthwhile. So
maybe that would be a consideration for people going in that direction, but it is a very different list.
Yeah, and I think Hold the Line works fine. You know, you've got plenty of battle line units because all the B skewers are battle line, and they're quite hard to. If you wanted to if you were like, the game's getting away from me here, I need to just like move the guys around. It's actually quite hard to kill them all.
That'd be horrible. Yeah,
because like you've got the gut,
and they'd still be shooting you while you were doing it. Like, you can't send 10 guys after them if they're going to move, shoot, and move and shoot.
But you've got the option to alpha strike people if you want,
or threaten it,
or you can let them go first and hope you get the double.
Horrible.
And just against a lot of armies that don't have a lot of reach, can't get to you, you can literally just go, well, I've set up, I've got the choice, you go first, they're gonna have to come at you, then you're still in the first turn, so you still get your benefit of your rerolls. And then you're just like, well, actually, you know, you've got to come into range.
That'd be grim. That'd be really horrible for quite a lot of armies, because you could pick off the third of their army that you didn't want to face, and then still have the option of getting the double, take half of what's left, and at that point it's game, isn't it? Tie some things up. Even if you were facing Marathi or something that you really hated, you can still put enough crap in the way that you just lock down the board.
Marathi's hard. She's tough. Because you can't. Your army's so fragile. That's why you kind of starburst out your crap.
You just end up with like rings of Saturn around her and be like, well, you know, sorry.
Yeah, you do the thing where you have like your unit screen and you have your unit behind, and the gap in the middle is not big enough to fit the base.
Yeah.
And then you can't move further than like this, so you've got a long charge to get round, but you can't really get there. So if you position it right with the spacing, almost checkerboarding, like she can't actually get to you.
You got redeploy as well and stuff like that. It's like doing a go trick or something, isn't it? You know you can't be touched by it, and if you are, the thing will die, and you try and put enough stuff in the way and then eke it out. But if you did face an army like that, you'd I imagine you'd be rubbing your hands overall, as long as it wasn't a particularly bad scenario for you or something.
Well, the irony, I mean, like the irony with like go trek and things like that is you're quick enough to kind of get away from him.
Yeah.
And then like, although you're only doing one damage per attack kind of thing, but mortal wounds kind of bypass that, I think, because it's like, because it's not damage.
No 3-up save.
But he reduces the damage to 1.
Yeah.
The mortal wound isn't damage. You're inflicting mortal wounds, so it's like if you get +1 damage, it doesn't boost your mortal wound output on a spell, for example.
Oh yeah, interesting.
So you can't use Destiny dice on a mortal wound roll because it's not a damage roll. You know, that kind of
thing. Got you. No, that
makes
sense. And he switch off his 3-up after save, which is, you know.
You can, so you can switch off with a nasty hex. I mean, that the shackles is also obviously anti-go trek, and is a good option. So I think for me, like depending on what the meta is, you would then skew the army round. But for me, like as a Kruelboyz in a Kruelboyz army, I think that's probably the most competitive build. You know, in terms of big yellow shooting, playing around the edges on that.
With spell portal.
Well, yeah. I mean, spell portal's optional. I like it because right now, it does a lot. Yeah, because even if you're playing, and if you play against an army that's got a big unit of infantry, you can even cast the spell, which I think is the Black Pit, which is on a 12 inch range, 7 again. Pick an enemy unit within range, roll a dice for each model unit on a 6. And for every other roll that's equal to or greater than their save, the unit suffers 1 mortal wound. So if you've got like a unit of like, I don't know, like 30 Iron Drakes or something like that with a 4-up save, that's half the unit's going to take mortal wounds.
Oh, it's so tasty, isn't it?
And you can deliver that from so far away. You're, you know...
Gobsprack's a proper utility piece.
That's why I like him, because he gives you so much flexibility in a tournament setting, because you don't know what you're going to face.
Because you never select that spell as your option if you had to select an option.
Probably not, but it's there. So
like 1 out of 18 games, you're going to be like, whoa.
And even like choking miss, you know, like subtract 1 from attacks for units within 6 of a point. So you can make a cloud of like, all right, well, you can fight me, but not as good. Because even against
half
Gargants, that's
capacity.
amazing because like
Yeah,
you're
it's
losing,
really good.
you know, it's not going to survive much, but it will limit their damage output.
Completely.
Yeah, I think that's how I would go about playing Kruelboyz at an event right now. So that's my Kruelboyz list tech.
No, that's a good take on it.
Yeah,
Crossbows forever, I guess.
it's all about the pew pew. So there are other builds, there are combat builds and things, but like if I was going to an event next weekend, which I am, but if I was taking Kruelboyz, that's probably what I would take.
Cool.
So I thought I'd share that with people, get some people inspired. Let me know below if you've got any interesting Kruelboy armies or anything you're particularly excited about playing with. I still think there's a baby harness breaker boss with Trogoff Slogoff list somewhere. Combat gut ripper breaker boss list. I guess there's something there.
All right then. Well, that's a properly left field one for another day, isn't it? I'll think about it.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you all in the next one.
Cheers, guys. Catch you in a bit. Bye.
All right, bye.